There are moments in life when heaven whispers, and most people mistake it for silence. There are seasons when God speaks, and the world calls it coincidence. But there are a few, just a few, who feel something stirring deep within their spirit, something they cannot ignore, something that won't let them sleep the same, think the same, or live the same. This message is for those few, because what was shared with you is not ordinary. It was not casual. It was not random. It was a calling. You didn't stumble upon it by accident. You didn't hear it just because you were scrolling or listening or passing time. No, there was a divine interruption in your routine, a moment where eternity brushed against your temporary world and said, "Wake up." And yet, the danger is this. When something sacred becomes familiar, we stop treating it as holy. When God speaks more than once, we begin to treat his voice like background noise. But hear this clearly, what was shared with you carries weight. It carries responsibility. It carries consequence. God does not reveal without purpose. There's a reason you felt it in your chest. There's a reason your thoughts lingered on it long after you heard it. There's a reason you could not fully dismiss it, even when you try to distract yourself. Because deep down, your spirit recognized something your mind could not fully explain. This is how calling begins. Not with clarity, but with conviction. Not with comfort, but with a holy disturbance that shakes your normal life. It pulls you away from what is easy and invites you into what is eternal. And many run from this moment. Many hear and then silence it. Many feel and then bury it under distractions, entertainment, and excuses. But a few listen. A few understand that when God shares something with you, he is not just informing you. He is transforming you. This is not information. This is invitation. An invitation to step out of what you've always known into what you were created for. And let's be honest, it's not easy, because calling will confront your comfort. It will challenge your identity. It will expose the parts of you that you've hidden even from yourself. When God calls, he doesn't just ask for your time. He asks for your surrender. And surrender is where most people hesitate, because surrender means letting go of control. It means trusting when you don't understand. It means walking forward when there is no visible path. But this is where faith is born. Faith is not built in certainty. It is built in obedience. It is built in those moments when you say, "I don't fully understand this, but I cannot ignore it." You see, the calling that few understand is not loud. It doesn't always come with signs and wonders. Sometimes it comes as a quiet knowing, a persistent pull, a voice that says, "There's more for you than this." And the world will try to convince you otherwise. It will tell you to stay where it's safe, to follow what's predictable, to choose comfort over purpose. But deep inside, you know that if you ignore this calling, you will always feel incomplete. Because you were not created for average. You were not designed to simply exist. You were designed to carry something eternal. And when God shares something with you, it is often because he trusts you with it. That's the weight of it. He trusted you to hear it. He trusted you to carry it. He trusted you to respond. But trust does not remove the struggle. In fact, it often intensifies it, because now you are aware. Now you cannot pretend you didn't hear. Now you stand at a crossroads between obedience and avoidance. And every day you delay, the tension grows, because calling does not disappear. It waits. It presses. It reminds, until you either answer it or silence it. But here is the truth most people won't tell you. Ignoring your calling does not bring peace. It brings restlessness. It brings a quiet frustration that no achievement can satisfy. Because success without purpose is empty. And fulfillment only comes when you align with what God has placed inside you. So listen now, not with your ears, but with your spirit. What was shared with you is not small. It was not meaningless. It was not optional. It was a moment of divine alignment. And you have a choice. You can walk away, return to what is familiar, and convince yourself that it was nothing. Or you can lean in, step forward, and say, "God, I don't fully understand this, but I'm willing." And that willingness, that single step, becomes the beginning of something greater than you ever imagined. Because God does not call the ready. He readies the called. And if you heard it, if you felt it, if something inside you is still stirring right now, then maybe, just maybe, you are one of the few who were meant to listen. There are moments in life that look ordinary on the surface, yet carry a weight that cannot be explained by logic alone. A moment where nothing visibly changes around you, yet everything begins to shift within you. You may have been going about your day, doing what you always do, thinking what you always think, when suddenly something interrupts the pattern. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. It reaches beyond your routine and touches something hidden beneath the surface of your existence. This is how divine interruption often begins. Not with noise, but with presence. Not with force, but with a quiet authority that doesn't ask for permission to be felt. It settles into your thoughts, lingers in your spirit, and refuses to be dismissed as coincidence. You try to move on, but it follows you. You try to distract yourself, but it remains. There's a persistence to it that makes you pause and wonder if what you experienced was more than just a passing thought. Because it was. God does not always announce himself with thunder. Sometimes he speaks in a way that bypasses your ears and reaches directly into your soul. A subtle knowing, a sudden awareness, a realization that feels like it came from beyond your own mind. You didn't create it, yet it's now part of you. You didn't seek it, yet it found you. And that is what makes it unsettling. Because when something sacred interrupts your normal life, it exposes how much of your life has been lived on autopilot. It reveals how comfortable you've become with repetition, with predictability, with staying within boundaries that require no faith. The interruption doesn't just bring a message, it brings contrast. It shows you the difference between where you are and where you could be. There's a moment in that interruption where time feels different, where everything slows down just enough for you to notice what you've been overlooking. A thought lands heavier than usual. A feeling goes deeper than expected. You begin to sense that this is not something you should brush aside, that this moment matters more than you want to admit. Yet the mind resists. It searches for explanations. It tries to reduce the experience to something logical, something manageable, something that doesn't require change. It tells you that you're overthinking, that it's not that serious, that life should just continue as it was. Because if you accept that this is a divine interruption, then you must also accept that something in your life cannot remain the same. And that is where tension is born. Because part of you wants to return to comfort, to ignore the feeling and continue forward as if nothing happened. But another part of you, deeper, quieter, but stronger, refuses to let go. It keeps bringing you back to that moment, replaying it, reminding you, whispering that there is more to this than you are willing to admit. This is not accidental. God does not interrupt without intention. Every divine interruption carries purpose, even if that purpose is not immediately revealed. Sometimes the message is clear, but often it is not. Often it comes as a seed, something planted within you that requires time, reflection, and openness to fully understand. But whether you understand it or not does not change its significance. The interruption itself is the evidence. It is the sign that something beyond your normal awareness has reached into your life, that heaven has crossed into your routine, that you have been noticed not in a distant or abstract way, but personally, specifically, intentionally. And that realization carries its own weight, because it means you're no longer just moving through life unnoticed. It means there is a level of awareness now that cannot be undone. Once you recognize that God has spoken, even in the quietest way, you cannot fully return to ignorance. The knowledge remains. The feeling remains. The awareness remains. You may try to ignore it, but it will surface again, in quiet moments, in unexpected thoughts, in a sense of unease when everything should feel normal. Because divine interruption is not meant to be temporary. It is meant to awaken something permanent, something that shifts how you see yourself, how you see your life, how you see the path ahead of you. It creates a crack in your routine where light begins to enter, and light reveals. It reveals the areas where you've settled, the places where you've stopped growing, the ways you've limited yourself without even realizing it. Not to condemn you, but to call you higher. And yet, that calling begins with discomfort, because before anything changes around you, something must change within you. Your awareness must expand. Your perspective must shift. Your heart must become open to something beyond what it has known. And that process is rarely comfortable. It stretches you. It confronts you. It invites you into a space where you cannot rely on what has always worked before. And that is where many begin to pull back, because the interruption feels like the beginning of something unknown. And the unknown carries risk. It carries uncertainty. It requires trust. But what you felt in that moment was not given to confuse you. It was given to awaken you, to draw your attention to something that matters beyond the surface of your daily life. Something eternal, something purposeful, something that refuses to be ignored, no matter how hard you try to move past it. What was placed inside you did not arrive without weight. It did not come lightly, and it was never meant to be treated as something casual or temporary. The moment you recognized that something deeper had been shared with you, a shift occurred, not just in your thoughts, but in your responsibility. Because when something is revealed to you by God, it is not only a gift, it is a trust. And trust carries weight. There is a difference between hearing something and receiving something. Many hear, but few truly receive. To receive is to allow it to enter beyond the surface, to settle within your spirit, to become something you carry rather than something you simply observe. And once you carry it, you begin to feel its presence in ways that cannot be ignored. It shows up in your decisions, in your hesitation, in the quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts. You begin to sense that you cannot live the same way you did before, even if nothing around you has visibly changed. Because internally, something has shifted. A standard has been raised. An awareness has been awakened. And with that awareness comes a quiet urgency that you cannot fully explain to anyone else. This is the weight of calling. It does not always come with clarity. In fact, most of the time, it comes with more questions than answers. You may not know what to do next. You may not understand why you were chosen to feel this, to carry this, to think differently than those around you. But the lack of clarity does not remove the certainty of the weight. You feel it in a way that words struggle to define. There is a tension between what you know and what you see. On the outside, life continues as normal. People around you go on without noticing anything different. Conversations remain the same. Routines stay intact. But inside you, there's a quiet disruption. A sense that you're no longer fully aligned with what once felt comfortable. And that misalignment creates pressure, because now you're aware of something others may not be. You're carrying a sensitivity to purpose, to meaning, to direction that sets you apart in subtle but significant ways. You begin to question things you never questioned before. You begin to feel uneasy in places where you once felt at ease. Not because those things suddenly became wrong, but because you're being drawn towards something more. And that more is not easy to explain. It is not always visible. It is not always logical, but it is real, and it grows stronger the more you acknowledge it. This is where the weight intensifies, because awareness demands response. Once something has been revealed to you, ignoring it does not make it disappear. It only deepens the internal conflict. You may try to push it aside, to convince yourself that it is not that important, that it can wait, that life can continue as it always has. But deep down, you know that is not true. Because the weight remains. It follows you into your daily life, into your choices, into your thoughts when everything else becomes quiet. It becomes a constant reminder that something has been placed in your hands, something that requires attention, something that cannot be neglected without consequence. And this is where many begin to feel overwhelmed. Because carrying something from God is not always comfortable. It requires you to hold something that is bigger than your current understanding. It asks you to walk with something that has not yet fully revealed its purpose. It places you in a position where you must learn to trust without having all the answers. And trust is heavy, because it forces you to let go of control. It forces you to accept that you are part of something greater than yourself, something that cannot be fully managed or predicted. And in a world that values certainty, that can feel like a burden rather than a blessing. But the weight you feel is not meant to crush you. It is meant to shape you. It is meant to develop a depth within you that cannot be formed through ease or comfort. It stretches your capacity. It strengthens your spirit. It teaches you to carry something meaningful, something eternal, even when it feels beyond your current ability. There's also a loneliness that can come with this weight. Not because you're truly alone, but because not everyone around you will understand what you are carrying. You may try to explain it, but the words may fall short. You may try to share it, but others may not feel it the way you do. And that gap between your experience and their understanding can make you feel isolated. But that isolation is not rejection. It is refinement, because not every weight is meant to be shared with everyone. Some things are given to you specifically, personally, intentionally. And part of carrying that weight is learning to stand in it, even when it sets you apart. There will be moments when you wish you could put it down. Moments when you wish you could return to the simplicity of not knowing, of not feeling this internal pressure, of not being aware of something greater calling you forward. But once something has been placed within you, it cannot be undone. It becomes part of you, part of how you think, part of how you see the world, part of how you respond to life itself. And whether you embrace it or resist it, the weight remains. Not as a punishment, but as a reminder that what was given to you matters, that what you are carrying has purpose, that you have been entrusted with something that cannot be treated as ordinary. The moment you begin to recognize what has been placed inside you, a struggle quietly takes shape, not one that is always visible to others, but one that unfolds within you, layer by layer. It is not a sudden clash, but a gradual tension between two directions, one that pulls you toward what is familiar and another that draws you toward what is unknown. At first, the struggle feels subtle. You try to continue as you always have, returning to your routines, your habits, your patterns of thinking. You tell yourself that nothing really needs to change, that whatever you felt can simply exist in the background while life moves forward as usual. But the more you try to maintain that balance, the more you begin to feel the strain of it. Because what has been awakened in you does not fit into your old life without resistance. There's a quiet voice within you that refuses to settle. It doesn't shout, but it persists. It nudges you in moments when you least expect it. It speaks in the pauses between your distractions. And every time it surfaces, it brings with it a question you cannot easily answer. What are you going to do about this? And that question creates pressure, because responding requires change, and change carries uncertainty. It asks you to step away from what you know and into something you cannot fully see. It challenges the structure of your current life, the way you've defined yourself, the path you've been following. And even if that path has not fully satisfied you, it is still familiar. It still feels safe. So you hesitate. You begin to negotiate with yourself. You consider ways to delay, to soften the impact, to acknowledge the calling without fully committing to it. You tell yourself that you need more time, more clarity, more confirmation. You convince yourself that waiting is wisdom, that hesitation is caution, that delay is preparation. But deep down, you sense the difference between preparation and avoidance. And that awareness intensifies the struggle. Because now it is not just about what you feel, it is about what you choose. Every moment becomes a quiet decision point. Will you lean toward what is calling you, or will you retreat into what is comfortable? Will you listen to the deeper voice within you, or will you drown it out with noise and distraction? And distraction becomes tempting, because it offers relief. It allows you to temporarily escape the weight, the tension, the responsibility of responding. You fill your time with activity, with entertainment, with anything that keeps your mind occupied enough to avoid facing what is stirring inside you. For a while it works. The voice seems quieter. The pressure seems lighter. But it never fully disappears. Because truth does not fade simply because it is ignored. It waits. It remains present beneath the surface, ready to rise again the moment your guard is down. And when it does, it often feels stronger than before. More insistent. More difficult to dismiss. Because each time you ignore it, you become more aware that you are ignoring something real. And that awareness creates a different kind of discomfort. Not just the discomfort of uncertainty, but the discomfort of knowing you are resisting something that matters. You begin to feel a sense of inner conflict that goes beyond simple indecision. It feels like a division within yourself, as if one part of you is moving in one direction while another part is being pulled in another. This is where the struggle deepens, because it is no longer just about external choices, it is about internal alignment, about whether you are willing to become the person who responds to what has been placed inside you. And that requires more than a simple decision. It requires a shift in identity. You begin to realize that answering the calling will change you. It will require you to think differently, to act differently, to prioritize differently. It may require you to let go of certain comforts, certain habits, even certain relationships that no longer align with where you are being led. And that realization brings a sense of loss, even before anything has actually changed. So you resist again. You question whether it is really necessary. You wonder if you are misinterpreting what you felt. You search for reasons to stay where you are, to justify your hesitation, to maintain control over your life as it currently exists. Because as long as you stay in control, you can avoid the risk that comes with stepping into the unknown. But control is an illusion in this moment, because the more you try to hold on to it, the more you feel the tension between what you want and what you sense you're meant to do. The calling does not force you, but it does not release you either. It remains present, patient, but persistent, allowing you to choose while never allowing you to forget. And this creates a kind of pressure that is both uncomfortable and revealing. It reveals what you truly value. It reveals how much you are willing to trust. It reveals whether you are more committed to comfort or to purpose. Because eventually, the struggle reaches a point where neutrality is no longer possible. You cannot remain in between indefinitely. You cannot continue to acknowledge the calling without either moving toward it or turning away from it. And that realization brings clarity, even if it also brings fear. Because now you understand that the struggle itself is part of the process. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something significant is at stake. That what you are facing is not small, not trivial, not easily dismissed. It is a moment that demands a response, whether that response is action or avoidance, movement or retreat, trust or hesitation, and each choice shaping you in ways you may not fully see yet. Each decision reinforcing a direction that becomes harder to reverse the longer you remain in it. Each moment of resistance adding to the weight you already carry. Each moment of willingness opening a door you have not yet fully stepped through. There comes a point where the tension within you can no longer be ignored or managed. The quiet struggle that once felt distant becomes immediate. The questions that once lingered in the background move to the front of your mind. The awareness you have been carrying reaches a level where it demands something from you. Not more thinking, not more waiting, not more analysis, but a decision. And this decision is not always dramatic on the outside. There may be no visible sign, no announcement, no moment where everything suddenly becomes clear. It often happens in silence, in the depths of your own thoughts, where you finally confront what you have been avoiding. A realization settles in that you cannot continue in the same way without denying something real within you. This is where everything begins to define itself. Because up until this point, you have been in process. You have been feeling, considering, wrestling, questioning. But now you're choosing. And choice has a way of shaping identity in ways that thoughts alone cannot. What you decide in this moment begins to determine not only what you will do, but who you will become. There are always two directions before you. One feels familiar, stable, predictable. It allows you to return to what you already know, to maintain control, to avoid the risk that comes with stepping into something uncertain. It offers immediate comfort, a sense of relief from the tension you have been carrying. You can tell yourself that life will be easier this way, that not every feeling needs to be acted on, that it is okay to stay where you are. And part of you wants to believe that, because comfort has its own pull. It speaks in a language that feels safe, that reassures you that nothing needs to change, that you can continue forward without disruption. It promises peace, but it is a surface-level peace, one that depends on ignoring what lies beneath. The other direction, is different. It does not offer the same kind of reassurance. It does not present a fully clear path. Instead, it asks for something deeper. It asks for trust. It asks for movement without complete understanding. It asks you to step forward based on what you have felt, what you have sensed, what has been placed inside you, even if you cannot fully explain it to anyone else. And that is where fear often rises, because stepping into the unknown means releasing the illusion of certainty. It means accepting that you will not have all the answers before you begin. It means allowing yourself to be guided rather than fully in control. And for many, that feels like too great a risk. So the mind begins to argue. It lists reasons to wait, reasons to hold back, reasons to stay where it is safe. It reminds you of past uncertainties, of potential failures, of outcomes you cannot predict. It tries to protect you by keeping you within the boundaries of what is known. And in doing so, it creates hesitation that feels justified, even reasonable. But beneath those arguments, there is still that quiet knowing, a sense that what you're being asked to do is not based on logic alone, that the calling you have felt is not something that can be fully analyzed or proven before you act. It requires a different kind of response, one that comes from trust rather than certainty. And this is where the decision becomes personal, because no one else can make it for you. No one else feels what you feel in the same way. No one else carries the exact weight you have been given. Others may offer advice, opinions, perspectives, but ultimately, this moment belongs to you. It is your response, your willingness, your step forward, or your step back that will shape what happens next. There is a cost to both directions. Choosing comfort may protect you from immediate discomfort, but it also means leaving something untouched within you. It means accepting a version of life that stays within limits you already understand. It may feel easier now, but over time, it often carries a quiet sense of incompleteness, a subtle awareness that something was left unexplored. Choosing to step forward carries its own cost. It requires courage, not in the absence of fear, but in the presence of it. It asks you to move even when you are unsure, to trust even when you cannot see the full picture. It may disrupt your plans, challenge your expectations, and lead you into situations that stretch you beyond what feels comfortable, but also aligns you. It brings you into a place where your actions begin to match what you have felt inside, where the tension between knowing and doing begins to resolve, where you're no longer divided between two directions, but moving fully in one. And that alignment changes you. Not all at once, not in a single moment, but gradually. With each step, with each act of willingness, with each decision to continue rather than retreat, you begin to see differently, to think differently, to carry yourself differently, because you're no longer just considering a calling. You're living in response to it. This is how identity is formed, not through what you say you believe, but through what you choose when faced with uncertainty, through what you do when there is no guarantee of outcome, through how you respond when something greater than your comfort calls you forward. And once that decision is made, something shifts. Even if the external world looks the same, internally, there is movement, a sense that you have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, that you have stepped into a direction that will continue to unfold, revealing more as you move further into it. Because the path does not fully appear before you begin. It reveals itself in response to your willingness, in response to your obedience, in response to your decision to trust what was placed inside you rather than retreat from it. And while the journey ahead may not be fully visible, the fact that you have chosen changes how you walk into it, changes how you face what comes next, changes how you carry both the uncertainty and the purpose that now move together within you, shaping each step in ways that continue to unfold beyond what you can currently see.